On a late afternoon stroll down Elm and Pine in Maplewood, Naomi Carter cradled her 8-month belly with one hand and carried a small paper bag of apples in the other. The golden light filtered through the pines as she left Cedar Springs Library, her shift over and thoughts full of the surprise dinner she was planning for her husband, Elijah. Naomi imagined his smile when she'd placed steaming bowls of chicken and dumplings, his favorite, on their table at Reed and Carter Veterans Outreach. But serenity vanished when a patrol car lurched to a halt beside her. The engine growled as its door swung open, revealing Officer Derek Connors, tall, broad-shouldered, uniform pristine. Locals whispered his name in barbershops, warning against drawing his attention. Naomi froze as he barked, "You, stop right there." His tone carried no pretense of questioning, it was pure command. I'm just walking home," Naomi stammered, voice small. She dropped her gaze, hoping to diffuse the tension. But Connors stepped forward, hand brushing the holster at his hip. "Loitering suspicious," he snapped. Naomi inhaled, the baby fluttering in response. "I'm not loitering, just heading home," she said, voice steady despite the terror coiling in her gut. Without warning, Connors shoved her. Naomi's feet slipped on cracked concrete, her apples tumbled in every direction. Pain exploded as she hit the ground, clutching her abdomen. Before she could gather herself, Connors raised a boot and kicked her midsection. The quiet afternoon shattered with her scream. Naomi crumpled, shock and agony radiating through her. Bystanders froze, phones half raised. A single cry for help pierced the hush, "She's pregnant, call 911." But Connors turned away, dismissing her as if she were invisible. On the pavement, Naomi pressed trembling fingers to her belly, praying her child was unharmed, and unaware that everything had just changed. Elijah Carter's phone buzzed with urgency as he barreled out of his office at Reed and Carter Veterans Outreach. Barely noticing the red light, he sped toward Riverside Medical Center, heart pounding like a war drum. The nurse on the line had said simply, "Your wife's in critical condition, she's asking for you." He burst through the emergency doors, knuckles white as he gripped the steering wheel. A crash cart careened past him in the corridor, a voice called, "Room 413. Elijah didn't think, he ran. The antiseptic glare of the hall lights blurred as he pushed open the door. There, on the crisp white sheets, lay Naomi. Her face, usually radiant with warmth, was pale and bruised, her lips split in two distinct lines. Monitors beeped insistently, but Elijah's eyes went to the rise and fall of her abdomen. Alive. The baby was safe, for now. He fought back tears as he sank to his knees beside her bed. Naomi's eyelids fluttered. "Elijah," she whispered. He took her hand, fingers trembling. "I'm here," he choked out. "I got you." A tall, gray-haired doctor stepped forward. "Mr. Carter, Naomi suffered significant blunt force trauma. We're watching closely for placental abruption, but right now her heartbeat is strong and your child's oxygen levels are stable." He offered a reassuring nod before slipping away. Elijah nodded absently, his mind already racing. He recalled the trembling flutter of their child when Naomi was shoved, and then the brutal kick. The image tormented him, the sound of Connor's boot, Naomi's scream, apples scattering like fallen marbles. He swallowed hard, clamping down on anger and fear. A nurse paused by the door. "She's tough," the woman said gently. "Patients don't often pull through something like this." Elijah managed a flat smile. "She's a fighter." Naomi squeezed his hand. "He kicked me," she murmured. Elijah closed his eyes. "I know." He brushed damp hair from her forehead. "You're safe now." Despite the doctor's confidence, Elijah felt raw vulnerability. He'd been a Marine Corps medic, seen worse overseas, but here, on this hospital bed in Maplewood, he was powerless. A flicker of guilt passed through him, he couldn't keep her safe, not from the very people sworn to protect. As Naomi drifted into a fragile sleep, Elijah pulled out his phone. The emergency contact list flashed on screen: friends, family, colleagues. But none felt right until he tapped the name Marcus Price. Their college roommate was now a civil rights attorney in Atlanta. Elijah's thumb hovered before sending the message: help. Naomi's been assaulted. A cop kicked her in the stomach. He slipped the phone back into his pocket. Outside the quiet room, Maplewood's dusk was settling. Candles flickered on the hospital steps, strangers murmured prayers in the cool air. Elijah drew a ragged breath and vowed, this wouldn't be swept under the rug. Naomi's fight would be as fierce outside these walls as it had been inside. Within hours of the attack, a bystander's shaky footage of Naomi Carter being shoved and kicked in the belly was everywhere. Elijah Carter watched the 52-second clip on his quiet kitchen TV, apples still scattered on the floor. Naomi's scream echoed in his ears. His heart pounded as he saw Derek Connors turn away, unconcerned. By sundown, the video had racked up tens of thousands of views online. In front of Riverside Medical Center, word spread: a pregnant woman attacked by an officer. Elijah trudged down the steps to find flickering candles dotting the front plaza. A dozen strangers, neighbors, veteran friends, church elders, stood silent, signs reading, "Justice for Naomi," and "Maplewood Cares." Their vigil glowed against the hospital's sterile facade. A retired schoolteacher handed Elijah a pamphlet. "We're here," she said softly. "We see you." Panic and purpose warred in his chest. He realized Naomi's battle had become theirs, too. Inside, Naomi rested, bruised and fragile but alive. Elijah sat beside her bed, clutching her hand. "They won't get away with this," he whispered. Naomi's eyes fluttered open. "Promise me, no reckless fights." He kissed her forehead. "I promise." That night, Elijah's phone lit up, texts from old Marine Corps buddies, local pastors, veterans at Reed and Carter Outreach. Marcus Price, his squad leader turned civil rights attorney, replied, "I'm in. Let's go." Elijah drafted a simple plan: collect every witness statement, mobilize the community, and hold Maplewood PD accountable. By midnight, a Facebook event was up: candlelight vigil for Naomi. In less than 2 hours, 500 people had RSVP'd. Elijah stared at the growing list: teachers, nurses, neighbors, each avatar a face with a story, a stake in this city's conscience. Meanwhile, Naomi's story spread beyond Maplewood. Regional news outlets picked up the clip. Officer under fire after assault on expectant mother. Social media feeds filled with outrage and support. Elijah scrolled through well-wishers and offers of help: legal, medical, emotional. As dawn broke, Elijah stepped onto his front porch, phone in hand, the vigil candles still smoldering in his mind. This was no longer just family trauma, it was a spark in a tinderbox of injustice too long ignored. He texted Marcus, "They have to pay. Let's meet." He tucked the phone away and looked across elm and pine. The world had shifted. Naomi's fight was Maplewood's fight. And Elijah Carter, once a quiet counselor, would lead it. At first light, Elijah Carter was already at Reed and Carter Veterans Outreach, pacing his tidy office. His call to Marcus Price had yielded immediate results. A small team of civil rights lawyers in Atlanta was ready to draft a complaint. But Elijah needed details: every timestamp, every bystander name, every frame of that video. He opened his laptop and uploaded the clip. Then he pulled Naomi's admission notes from Riverside Medical Center: bruising, risk of placental damage, whispered fears. Elijah compiled them into a single document. He titled it, "Carter vs. Maplewood PD," and sent it to Marcus with a cover note: "This is Exhibit A." Meanwhile, Marcus contacted Rosa Fields, a sharp, tenacious civil rights attorney in Charlotte known for taking on police brutality cases. Within hours, she had agreed to join the effort. Rosa's first task: map out every complaint previously lodged against Officer Derek Connors. Elijah discovered 3 past reports, 2 from black residents in Maplewood's South Side neighborhood, one quietly dismissed as unsubstantiated. By mid-morning, Elijah, Marcus, and Rosa convened in the Outreach Center's conference room. Naomi's framed picture graced the table, her serene smile a contrast to the urgency in the room. Rosa sketched a legal strategy. File a federal civil rights lawsuit under Section 1983 for excessive force. Seek a temporary restraining order to bar Connors from street duty. Issue a public records request for Connors's personnel files. Coordinate with local activists to sustain public pressure. Elijah took notes, heart racing. We need eyewitness affidavits, he said. The woman who called 911, the guy who filmed it, the nurse who treated Naomi. Marcus nodded and delegated tasks. Rosa would handle the legal filings, Elijah would gather testimonies, Marcus would pull the PD records and draft motions. By lunchtime, Elijah had already spoken with 3 witnesses, the terrified woman who dialed 911, the barista who heard Naomi's scream, and an off-duty nurse who'd rushed to help. Each agreed to sign sworn statements. Over sandwiches, Elijah drafted their narratives, weaving them into a coherent affidavit. That afternoon, Marcus filed the lawsuit in federal court. The document named the city of Maplewood, Police Chief Angela Ruiz, and Derek Connors as defendants. It demanded Connors's immediate suspension, damages for Naomi's medical bills and emotional suffering, and a court-supervised overhaul of the department's use of force policies. Simultaneously, Rosa issued a press release, Carter vs. Maplewood PD, pregnant mother assaulted, city on notice. News outlets pounced. Within hours, headlines blared across regional sites, pregnant woman sues police after brutal attack, Maplewood PD faces federal lawsuit. Social media shares soared. By dusk, Elijah stood outside Riverside Medical Center again. A growing vigil of 200 people held candles and signs, Justice for Naomi, Stop Police Brutality. He stepped onto a low concrete ledge, cleared his throat, and spoke into the night. My wife Naomi was attacked trying to walk home. We filed suit today because we trust the law more than silence, and we trust you more than fear. Maplewood, will you stand with us? The crowd's response was thunderous applause and chants of Carter. 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 Elijah's voice faltered with emotion, but his resolve hardened. Tonight, the lawsuit was filed. Tomorrow, the fight would begin in court, and in every corner of Maplewood. The morning after the lawsuit was filed, Elijah Carter arrived at Cedar Springs Community Center for the first town hall meeting. Rows of folding chairs filled the gym, banners reading, Justice for Naomi, adorned the walls. Marcus Price and Rosa Fields were already setting up a projector with Connors's personnel records and complaint logs. Residents trickled in, veterans in fatigues from Reed and Carter Outreach, teachers clutching coffee mugs, church elders leaning on canes, students with notebooks. The air buzzed with anticipation. Elijah spotted Naomi's best friend, Tanya Brooks, signing in. She mouthed, "We got your back," and squeezed his arm. Rosa stepped to the front, adjusting the mic. "Thank you all for coming," she began. "Today isn't just about one assault, it's about a pattern of behavior the Maplewood Police Department has ignored." She clicked the remote, 4 past complaints against Connors, 2 dismissed without investigation, flashed on the screen. Gasps filled the room. Next, Marcus presented internal memos, handwritten supervisor notes raising red flags about Connors's aggressive tendencies, emails from junior officers expressing concern. These documents, Marcus said, show a department culture that shields misconduct rather than corrects it. Elijah watched the faces before him, some skeptical, others nodding in grim recognition. When it fell silent, he stood. "I'm not here for revenge," he said, voice steady. "I'm here because Naomi should never have had to fear for her life, nor should any of you." He recounted the elm and pine encounter, the shove, the kick, the scattered apples. She was walking home after work at Cedar Springs Library, carrying nothing but groceries. She was unarmed. Yet she was treated like a threat. He paused, scanning the crowd. We have filed a lawsuit and demanded Derek Connors's immediate suspension. But we need more than lawsuits. We need your voices. He lowered his voice. Will you speak out? Will you share your stories, no matter how small? Hands went up. A young mother described being hassled at a traffic stop. A retiree recalled seeing Connors manhandle a teen for jaywalking. Each testimony built momentum. Tears rolled down elderly cheeks, fists pounded the air in solidarity. By the time Elijah stepped down, the gym was alive with resolution. Breakout sessions formed, one group to collect more witness statements, another to meet city council members, a third to plan a peaceful march. Tanya tapped Elijah's shoulder. We're not letting this die. He nodded, pride and purpose flooding him. As dusk fell, hundreds gathered outside City Hall. Candles lit the steps. Elijah joined Rosa and Marcus at the front, microphone in hand. Maplewood, we demand accountability, he declared. Not just for Naomi, but for every negligible complaint buried in a file cabinet. We demand transparency, bodycam footage released, independent oversight, community representation on the review board. The crowd's chant rose, accountability. Accountability. That night, City Hall trembled under the weight of Maplewood's demands. Elijah returned home, exhausted but exhilarated. Naomi's hand in his reminded him, their fight had become a movement, and it was just getting started. 3 days later, Elijah Carter strode into City Hall carrying a manila folder bulging with evidence, Connors's complaint history, internal emails, witness affidavits. No press, no entourage, just him and Marcus Price. They were escorted to the mayor's glass-walled conference room. Mayor Lydia Marshall waited, flanked by Police Chief Angela Ruiz and 2 city attorneys. Their faces were courteous but guarded. Marshall offered a sympathetic nod. Mr. Carter, we know this has been difficult. We appreciate your passion. Elijah set the folder on the table. Mayor Marshall, Ms. Ruiz, the passion you appreciate is a city's trust betrayed. These documents show 3 prior excessive force complaints against Officer Connors, all swept under the rug. We filed suit to force accountability. He slid the first packet forward, Connors's personnel file annotated with dismissal dates. Chief Ruiz cleared her throat. Our internal review processes are thorough, Elijah cut in, a process that ignores complaints is a process that protects abuse. His tone was calm but unyielding. A city attorney interjected, but due process, Elijah held up a hand. Due process is a shield for justice, not a sword for injustice. Naomi was brutalized in broad daylight, her video went viral. Yet Connors remains on paid administrative leave. Paid. That's my tax dollars paying a suspended officer while my wife recovers in ICU. Mayor Marshall exchanged a glance with the attorneys. We placed him on leave as soon as the department was notified. Elijah leaned forward. Not enough. I want Connors terminated, effective immediately. I want every supervisor who buried those complaints investigated for misconduct. And I want a public apology to Naomi and Maplewood. Not in a press release, but in person. Silence settled. Ruiz's jaw tightened. Mr. Carter, firing a sworn officer is not that simple. It is if it's the right thing, Elijah countered. And if you don't act, I will go public with every detail. The lawsuit is just the beginning. The mayor exhaled slowly. Give us 24 hours. We'll review your evidence and respond. Elijah stood. You have 24 hours. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. Maplewood is watching. In the hallway, Marcus clasped Elijah's shoulder. That was solid. Elijah nodded, but fury simmered beneath relief. Their confrontation had rattled the chamber. Now the pressure was on City Hall. That evening, Elijah returned to Naomi's room at Riverside Medical Center. She was awake, reading a children's book they'd bought for their baby. Her smile was weak but real. "They gave you 24 hours, she asked. Elijah kissed her hand. "And we'll hold them to it." She closed her eyes. "I believe you." Outside, the first candlelight vigil had swelled into nightly crowds at City Hall's steps. Maplewood's residents had found their voice. And Elijah Carter, veteran, counselor, husband, had brought it there. While City Hall wrestled with Elijah's demands, Rosa Fields and Marcus Price dug deeper. Late nights in Rosa's Charlotte office yielded a trove of memos. Training evaluations flagging Connors's aggressive demeanor, emails from beat officers whispering concerns, even a handwritten note from a supervisor admonishing Derek Connors for rough handling. Each page revealed a pattern, a department that prized silence over safety. At Reed and Carter Veterans Outreach, Elijah organized a document drive. Neighbors dropped off folders, records of minor traffic stops, filed complaints that vanished, cold case inquiries about Connors's previous assignments. Naomi's friend Tanya Brooks brought transcripts from her 911 call. An off-duty EMT submitted medical reports. By week's end, the legal team had compiled a dossier, 3 inches thick, of internal corruption. Rosa packaged it into an 8-point demand: immediate termination of Derek Connors. Criminal referral for excessive force. Independent oversight board with civilian majority. Mandatory de-escalation and bias training. Release of all body cam footage within 72 hours. Public apology to Naomi Carter. Reinstatement and compensation for past victims. Annual audits of the department's complaint handling. Armed with this, Elijah and Rosa scheduled a press conference on the courthouse steps. Local media lined up as Elijah stepped to the podium. Beside him, Rosa held the dossier like a trophy. Elijah's voice rang clear: "Maplewood, we have proof that this isn't an isolated incident. It's a system. Today we demand change or will escalate, in court, in state legislature, and at the ballot box." Reporters peppered them with questions. What if City Hall refuses? Will you run for office? Elijah held up a hand: "We're prepared to take every legal avenue. We don't seek political power, we seek accountability." That afternoon, a crowd gathered at the police precinct. They held candles and photos of Naomi, chanting, "Accountability now." Uniformed officers peered from windows, tension crackling in the air. Back at home, Elijah collapsed onto the sofa, exhaustion pulling at him. Naomi sat beside him. "They'll have to answer," she said softly. Elijah kissed her forehead. "They already are." In Maplewood, the quiet before dawn had turned into a roar, and the system trembled. When the lawsuit reached federal court, the courtroom pulsed with anticipation. The gallery was packed: veterans from Reed and Carter, library colleagues from Cedar Springs, neighbors in casual clothes clutching "Justice for Naomi" signs. Media cameras stood in silent rows. Elijah sat beside Naomi as the judge entered. Officer Derek Connors, now in plain clothes, slumped at the defense table, face drawn. His badge had been confiscated, his uniform long gone. The prosecutor opened with the video evidence. On a large monitor, Naomi's peaceful walk turned into shock and horror: the shove, the kick, the apples spilling like fallen hopes. Gasps rippled through the room. Even Connors flinched. Next came the medical expert, Dr. Anderson from Riverside Medical Center. She detailed Naomi's blunt force injuries, bruised organs, risk of placental abruption, weeks of monitoring. The judge asked, "Doctor, had the kick struck differently, could the outcome have been fatal?" Dr. Anderson nodded gravely. "Absolutely." Then the eyewitnesses. Tanya Brooks recounted dialing 911 while tears blurred her vision. An off-duty EMT described administering first aid on the sidewalk. Each account wove a tapestry of fear and outrage. Finally, Naomi took the stand. She walked slowly, supported by Elijah's steady presence. Under oath, she spoke softly but firmly, "I was walking home from Cedar Springs Library, carrying apples for dinner. I wasn't loud, I wasn't resisting. Then Officer Connors told me I was loitering. I fell, and he kicked me in the stomach. I heard my baby cry inside me." Her voice cracked, and the courtroom held its breath. No words could capture the weight of that moment, but her silence afterward spoke volumes. The defense attempted to argue perceived threat and miscommunication. But their narrative unraveled as the judge reviewed the footage and affidavits. The irony was palpable, the law and order officer depicted as out of control, the quiet librarian the embodiment of peaceful citizenry. When closing arguments concluded, the judge reminded the jury, "You must decide whether Officer Connors used excessive force in violation of Ms. Carter's civil rights." The jury filed out, leaving Naomi gripping Elijah's hand. Outside, Maplewood waited with bated breath. In corridors lined with marble, whispers of conviction and guilty passed between reporters. Naomi closed her eyes, drawing strength from Elijah's arm around her shoulders. Whatever the verdict, this trial had already shattered the silence. 3 hours later, the jury returned. The courtroom, already charged, fell into a hush. The foreperson stood and spoke each word with deliberate gravity. "We, the jury, find the defendant, Officer Derek Connors, guilty of excessive force and civil rights violations." Relief and vindication washed over Naomi. She pressed Elijah's hand to her lips. Years of silence, complaints and hidden memos finally culminated in a verdict that affirmed her truth. Connors's shoulders slumped, his eyes darting around the packed gallery. No uniform, no shield, just a man exposed. Security gently guided him from the dock. Judge Harper, stoic yet resolute, imposed a sentence fitting the gravity of the crime: 3 years in federal prison, revocation of law enforcement certification, and restitution to Naomi for medical expenses and emotional distress. The judge's voice echoed, "Let this serve as a warning that no badge can place one above the law." Outside the courthouse steps, a crowd erupted in cheers and tears. Veterans from Reed and Carter chanted, "Justice." Church elders waved signs. Families from Cedar Springs waved homemade banners. Reporters rushed Elijah for sound bites. He spoke calmly, "This isn't just my victory. It's a victory for every peaceful citizen who's ever been treated as a threat." News vans roared to life, "Officer convicted in pregnant woman assault, Maplewood's justice moment." Naomi, still clutching Elijah's arm, smiled through the pain. "I believed we'd win," she said softly. "Not for revenge, but so no one else is afraid." That night, they returned to Riverside Medical Center where Naomi was discharged. As they walked toward the parking ramp, Elijah paused. "This changes everything," he said. Naomi nodded, baby kicks fluttering beneath her gown. They drove home through Maplewood streets, their siren of justice heard by every neighbor. In the hospital halls and courthouse corridors, one truth prevailed: accountability matters. 6 months later, Reed and Carter Veterans Outreach hosted the launch of the Monroe Initiative for Police Accountability. In the community hall, Elijah Carter stood at a podium, Naomi at his side, their son, Little Justice, sleeping in a carrier. Volunteers bustled, attorneys from Marcus Price's firm offered pro bono help, and dozens of residents in "Justice for Naomi" t-shirts mingled over refreshments. Elijah cleared his throat. "We formed this nonprofit to ensure no one fights alone," he said. "We assist families, track complaints, and push for independent oversight in every department." He gestured to a wall displaying success stories: wrongful convictions overturned, policy reforms enacted, bodycam releases obtained. Naomi stepped forward. "I survived because someone filmed it," she said, voice steady with resolve. "But no one should have to rely on a viral video for justice. Our work ensures every citizen's rights are protected, every day, regardless of who's watching." Applause filled the hall. Justice cooed softly, interrupting the claps. Elijah scooped him up. "Meet our inspiration," he grinned. "Justice Monroe, proof that change is possible." Outside, lanterns glowed under the maplewood pines. Neighbors lingered, sharing stories. A local pastor blessed the initiative, a high schooler thanked Naomi for giving voice to her own fear of walking home. As the crowd dispersed under a starlit sky, Elijah and Naomi gazed at their baby. Naomi whispered, "We did it." He kissed her forehead. "This is just the beginning." In that moment, Maplewood knew, true justice isn't a moment, it's a movement, carried forward by those brave enough to stand.